Hello and welcome to Hot and Heavy, the Elaine podcast. I'm your host, Shivani Desai. Today I'll be talking about Season 7, Episode 18, The Wigmaster. Hello everyone. How's everyone doing out there? I hope you are doing very well. I'm doing pretty good. Getting through the week. Yesterday had a really fun and unique experience. My agent... randomly last week, she asked for a current photo of me and my kids. She just sent that with no context. So I was like, what is this for? So she's like, oh, sorry, it's for this Denver Zoo spot that I'm trying to cast. And I've told her before, it's funny because whenever they have family casting where they're like, oh, we want a real family, a mom and her kids, or, a whole family together that are actual family. I've told my agents before, I was like, well, my kids don't really do this. My husband doesn't do this. Like, they're not interested. It's not that I don't want them to, but they're genuinely not interested. And I don't know, there was something in me. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to send the picture, whatever. And literally, it was like in the morning, kids had just gotten ready for school. I'm still in PJs. And I asked my husband, just take a picture of us. Sent it along. And then a few days later, it's like, oh, you're booked for this shoot. And I'm like, oh, okay. So to pull my kids out of school for the day. Anyway, long story short, we did film a Denver Zoo commercial yesterday, me and my kids, and it was so fun. It was such a cool experience. They had a great time. They were a little nervous because they were like, well, I don't know what, I've never done this before, but it was super easy. There was no dialogue. It was a lot of just, walking around the zoo, enjoying different exhibits, and yeah, they had a great day. It was a long day. We had to be on set pretty early, and it was kind of an all-day thing, but it was so fun. I just I had these moments during the day going like, wow, I can't believe I've brought my kids to work with me. How fun is this? I never, as an actor, you don't think that's really something you would do, but yeah, overall, it was a fantastic day. My son actually had the most to do. He was in the most scenes for the day. And so he was losing it by the end of the day. Not losing it, but just very tired. And he had to keep changing outfits, and that was annoying him. And I was like, buddy, we're getting paid for this. And he perked up after I told him that. I didn't realize I hadn't told him, like, yeah, this is a paid thing. But he's like, we are? I was like, yeah, you're getting paid to be here. He's like, oh, okay. I gave him a little can of Coke, and then he perked right up, whatever you have to do. Actors, am I right? All right, so why don't we just go ahead and get into this episode? The synopsis for The Wigmaster is as follows. A wigmaster for the touring company of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat stays with George and Susan. A low-priced parking garage is letting hookers turn tricks in George and Kramer's cars. Jerry is insulted when Elaine and then the wigmaster are hit on while out with Jerry. Kramer is mistaken for a pimp when he's seen wearing the Technicolor Dreamcoat costume. A clothing store salesman strings along Elaine with the promise of a discount in order to keep her interested in him. This episode was written by Spike Ferriston. All right, we start over in the Andover shop, a clothing store. Jerry is shopping, and he asks the salesman to see a crested blazer. Says, I wore one once, and I think it did something for me. The sales guy shows him a Joseph Aboud crested blazer. It's super fancy, and Jerry's like, oh yeah, it'll go great with my sneakers. That's such a great line. And the guy says, oh, it's fabulous on you. Shall I wrap it up? And Jerry isn't so sure. He's like, I'm going to come back with someone later and see what they think. The salesman's like, uh-huh. No, really, I'll be back, Jerry says. Yeah. We have a jacket watch again. After months of no jacket watch, we have two back to back. How amazing is this? Last week was a Friars Club jacket. So this Andover shop crested blazer is our 15th incident of jacket watch. Now, I am tracking all the jacket plots because of a comment made by the comedian Neil Brennan on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. He said to Jerry, I never really watched Seinfeld, and every time I did, you guys were worried about a jacket, which cracked me up. So I was just starting this podcast when I saw that episode, and I was like, okay, I need to count the jacket incidents because he's not wrong. Anyway, so this is number 15, crested blazer from the Andover shop. All right, next we're in Jerry's apartment. Elaine is there on the couch, and Jerry's telling her what happened at the shop. You know, how the guy gave him an attitude when he said he'd be back with someone else. And she's like, oh, so he knew you were making it up. Yeah, he caught me. He tells Elaine to come back with him to the store and will pretend to look at the jacket. And she points out how you don't want the jacket. But Jerry doesn't like the fact that this guy thought he was lying, so he's going to show him he wasn't. But you were, Elaine said. But if you come back with me, I'm not. One of those stupid back and forths that I love in Seinfeld. George gets off the phone all annoyed while Kramer enters the apartment. Jerry asks George problems with the house guest. What house guest? Elaine asks. George says how a friend of Susan's is staying with them for 2 weeks. Now, is it me or is that excessive? Well, not for Kramer, because Bob Sacamano stayed with him for 1.5 years one time. George tells them how the friend is a wig master who's touring with Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. He's in charge of the wigs. Kramer wants tickets. He's really interested. George has to go. He has to go drop off his car at a new lot, Jiffy Park. He says it's so cheap, only $75 a month. Plus, you get a cool t-shirt. Well, Kramer's down and exits with him. My take on this scene, there's really not much to cover. We're just kind of getting set up of how Elaine is going to be involved in Jerry's little plan here. I did want to point out, because it always sort of triggers me. Trigger might not be the right way to say it, but it reminds me of an incident. So you'll notice Jerry in this scene is giving Elaine a clearly Canadian sparkling water. And I remember these from when I was little. They were like flavored sparkling waters. And I still remember it was my friend Carrie's house. And I think like they'd maybe just come out. I would see the Clearly Canadian commercials all the time. And I was very curious. But my parents would never have bought Clearly Canadian. They're just like, what's the use? So I remember being at my friend Carrie's house and seeing it in the fridge. And I was like, ooh, can I try one of those? She's like, yeah, they're really good. And I just remember, I think I was expecting like a soda, I think like a Coke or a Sprite or something. I mean, it was clear, so maybe more like a Sprite or a 7-Up, but it was like a weird flavored, kind of like LaCroix, I guess now. I think there was some sweetness to it more than LaCroix or any of the sparkling waters now. But at any rate, I was a little disappointed with the taste, but whatever. I opened a bottle, so I just drank the whole thing. And I got the worst splitting headache like an hour later. I remember being at home and going like, oh my God, I can barely stand up. Like that Clearly Canadian was evil. So anyway, there's just a little story from my past. Clearly Canadian gave me a horrible, horrible headache. And clearly it made an impact. I mean, this is at least 30 years later and I'm still thinking about it. All right, next we're back at the Andover shop. Jerry is all proud to point to the sales guy that he came back with someone. Are you surprised? No, I believed you, the guy said. So he introduces him to Elaine and he goes, hello, I'm Craig. And she's like, hi. We get flirty Elaine. Anyway, he gets the jacket. Well, here it is. And Elaine is immediately impressed that it's a Joseph boot and the hand ticking around the crest. Wow. Craig is impressed. You know your clothes. And she tells him, well, I'm in the biz, and that she works for J. Peterman. Oh, he says he loves J. Peterman, especially the fanciful narratives in the catalog. And she's like, oh, well, I write those. Jerry is getting impatient with all this flirting. He interrupts to ask Elaine what she thinks of the crest. And she's like, I love it. I think you should take it. And he's like, what? Craig asks, will that be check or credit card? Jerry says, check. He says he'll need his telephone number on the check, turns to Elaine. Perhaps you could do the same? And she's like, ah! Laughs and laughs. All right, my take on this scene. Right away, we see Elaine's vibe towards Craig. Like I said, flirty Elaine emerges, and that's always fun. I love when Elaine gets flirty. And I don't think Elaine is in the wrong here, by the way. Not about Craig, but just about liking the jacket. Jerry didn't tell her that she had to say she didn't like the jacket. I mean, at least I didn't hear it that way. And even if he did, I love when Elaine gives the old Scroogey to Jerry, or any of the guys for that matter, because she's always the recipient of getting screwed by them. So whatever, Jerry, get the jacket. Speaking of the jacket, I am not a fan of this jacket. Like, what the hell is the point of a crest unless it means something? I just feel like a crest with no purpose is stupid. I don't care if it's a Joseph Abood. It's dumb. All right, next we're on the street. Jerry and Elaine are walking, and he's so upset with her. You weren't supposed to say that. She's like, but I really did like it. And he's like, it doesn't matter because it put him in a must-buy situation. She's like, sorry. And Jerry mentions how he's also insulted that Craig asked her out right in front of him. What is the big deal? Well, it's very emasculating, Jerry says. He doesn't know the nature of our relationship. You're there approving clothes. It's a very girlfriend thing to do. How dare he? He dared. Elaine's so pleased. My take on this scene. I do like this plot for Jerry. Well, he sort of has two plots adjacent to each other, the jacket he doesn't like and then the emasculation portion of the plot. And Elaine is so amused by all of it, which I think is an accurate way to feel for Elaine. All right, next we're in George's apartment. George enters and he's greeted by the wigmaster friend, whose name is Ethan. He's like, hey, George, how's your day? Good. Yeah, good day. You? I am getting so much work done, he says. Susan enters from the kitchen. Hey, sweetie, how's your day? And then Ethan says, I already asked him that. He said, good day. And they start laughing. And they laugh so hard at that. And George is just miserable. All right, next we're in Jerry's apartment. We see Kramer in the hallway trying to get into his place. Jerry arrives and he's like, thank God you're here. I'm locked out. Apparently he didn't take his apartment key off his keychain when he dropped his car off at the Jiffy Park. And he needs his spare from Jerry. And Jerry's like, I don't have it. I gave it back to you. Well, they both enter Jerry's place and Kramer wants a ride down to the lot. And Jerry's like, come on. Now, every time you want your car, someone's going to have to give you a ride? Take the bus. I'm not taking the bus. That's why I got a car. He's like, you know what? I'm going to call George. Jerry's like, he won't take you. Then we see a shot of George sandwiched between Susan and wigmaster Ethan when the phone rings. Kramer asks him for a ride to the Jiffy Park and George cannot get out of there fast enough. All right, next we're in George's car. George and Kramer are driving to Jiffy Park. George is trying to talk to him about the wigmaster said you can go to the theater tonight, but he's trying to say this while Kramer is just fussing with the radio. There's static and noise. The stations keep changing. Finally, George loses it. Will you pick a station? We say this a lot in our house, by the way, when no one can figure out what the hell to watch. Like whenever we're trying to as a family trying to watch something together and no one knows or no one can choose, we have to say this. Would you pick a station? So all of Kramer's fussing causes the volume knob to fall off. He goes to pick it up on the floor and finds a used condom. And it's so disgusting. And George almost drives off the road in disgust. All right, next we're at Monk's. Elaine and Craig are at a table, and she asks how he likes working at the Andover shop. Pretty swanky, upscale clientele, except Jerry. And he asks if she saw anything she liked, because he can get a considerable discount. She's like, oh, well, actually, there was this amazing black dress. And he guesses it, the Nicole Miller. Yeah, she says. I'll take care of it. But I barely know you. Well, we'll just have to do something about that, won't we? Jerry walks by and sees Elaine and Craig through the window, gives kind of a, oh, geez, look. Like, there they are on the date he asked her for when I was right there. So Jerry enters. We don't see it, but Elaine goes to the bathroom at this point. He greets Craig by saying, hello, Greg. It's Craig. He asks if he had a nice lunch with Elaine. Then he asks Craig, how did you know she wasn't my girlfriend? Well, I could just sense it. Because we used to go out. Oh, yeah? Yeah, we went way out and wild. Elaine returns from the crapper and stands between Craig and Jerry. And a rose vendor has entered Monk's, and she asks directly to Craig if he wants to buy a rose for his wife, referring to Elaine. And Jerry is so annoyed. How do you know she's not my wife? The actress in this scene, the rose vendor, is played by Shashi Bhatia, which is an Indian actress. Shout out on Seinfeld, an Indian actress. How cool. There's not a lot about her on IMDb or in general on the internet, but I think she's very cute. I like how she stares at Jerry's crest on the blazer for a beat after he snaps at her. I'm not sure if she was directed this way or what, but for such a small role, like I remember her because of how she does that, how she's just kind of like staring at the crest. If you guys haven't noticed that, watch that part. Like she's kind of distracted by it. Like she's probably wondering like, what the hell is that stupid thing on your jacket? It always makes me laugh. I love good choice, fellow Indian actress Shashi Bhatia. And then my take on the scene, I like the dig at Jerry that Elaine says at the top of the scene. And I think it's extra funny that she makes fun of Jerry to a person who barely knows him. Like, it's really to just crack herself up more than Craig, like, okay. She's like so amused by her comment. There's not a lot of comedy here for JLD. We just move the plot along with the offering of a discount and the Nicole Miller dress stuff. And I will tell you, I didn't know, A, that Joseph Abood was a real brand, or that Nicole Miller was a real brand when I saw this episode. I was not a fancy, fashionable person in 1996. I got all my clothes at JCPenney, and Joseph Abood and Nicole Miller were not sold there. But anyway, I think I saw a Nicole Miller sometime in college. I think maybe I went to a mall, and I'm like, it's a Nicole Miller! I was very excited. Yeah, that's how sad I am, you guys. The funniest part of the scene is Jerry coming in and talking to Craig. That's definitely all the comedy that we see here. All right, next we're at Jiffy Park. George is complaining to the manager, how did a condom get into his car? And the manager kind of blames it on, you walk in this city and things stick to your feet. George says, well, that doesn't explain the lipstick on the dashboard. Well, the guy just offers him more shirts to appease him. A guy comes up to the manager and whispers something in his ear, and after he walks away, he tells Kramer they can't get his car. The keys seem to have been misplaced. Kramer's like, well, wait a second, I need those keys. I can't get into my apartment. Mr. Kramer, do you like Cadillacs? He offers Kramer a pink Cadillac Eldorado. It's a Mary Kay car. Ooh, that impresses Kramer. Kramer says bye to George and thanks him for the ride. George observes a few ladies approaching a car in the lot, and he says, I'm going to hang around here. There's something funny going on. So I have to mention, if you are a Conan O'Brien fan, you must Google Conan O'Brien sells Mary Kay, because it is fucking hilarious. So it's just one of these segments Conan did on his show, where he does these remotes and they're hilarious. I mean, pretty much all of them. It's all on the Team Coco YouTube channel, but holy shit, when he goes and sells, he goes to the headquarters of Mary Kay, which I believe is in Texas, meets with one of their top saleswomen, learns about the product. He then leads a party, a Mary Kay cosmetic party. I'm not going to give any more away, but I highly, highly recommend it. If you just need some nonsense to laugh at, which I think, holy shit, don't all of us need that with all the horrifying things happening in the world? I highly recommend the Mary Kay, Conan Sells Mary Kay remote that he did for his show. You will not be disappointed unless you hate Conan. Then, just use your own judgment. Don't look it up. But anyway, I think after I record this, I'm just going to watch it again because I know it will make me laugh. All right, next we're in Jerry's apartment. Elaine tells Jerry, you were wrong about Craig. He's a very sweet guy. Jerry's like, well, what about the ponytail? What about it? Ponytail? Get real. And Elaine's like, well, look, he promised me a discount on that dress. Jerry's like, of course he did. He's working you. Jerry, I've been around long enough to know when I'm being worked. Have you slept with him yet? She's like, I just met him this morning. It's been known to happen. And he warns her, I'm telling you, Elaine, he's going to dangle that dress in front of you like a dirt farmer dangles a carrot in front of a mule. She's like, oh, this is all very flattering. Like a shark fisherman with a bucket of chum. Okay. Like a shrimp farmer. Okay. My take on this scene. Jerry's little comment there about it's been known to happen. I wonder if Jerry and Elaine slept together right away, like within hours of meeting each other. It just feels like the it's known to happen comment is something that he's experienced. I mean, there's no way to know, but that's what I'm establishing in my own personal Seinfeld canon. Jerry and Elaine slept together really quick. I always laugh at the ponytail, get real comment. And I mean, to be honest, I don't know if it tracks that Elaine would like a guy with the ponytail, but I think Craig being British, he gets away with it. There's no way Elaine is dating an American dude with a ponytail. I just think the British thing had to be a part of it for us to believe Elaine would be attracted to him. All right, next we're in the theater, and the wig master is taking Kramer around backstage, and he saved the best for last. In the dressing room, he reveals the Technicolor Dreamcoat, and Kramer is blown away. Spectacular. All right, next we're back at Jiffy Park. George approaches one of the prostitutes, and he wants to ask her some questions. She asks if he's a cop. No, he's not a cop. He says that he works for the Yankees. Ugh, they stink. Nevertheless, he says, just wondering if she and her friends are doing business here. He says, what do you people call them? Turning tricks. He says he found a condom in his car. Now, I'm not saying it's yours. He just needs to know if he should switch lots. She tells him to get lost. She's trying to make a living here. And he says he'll pay her for her time. He gets out his wallet. And as he's doing that, Susan is approaching and seeing all of this. He offers the prostitute $10 or $15. 15? Susan says, George? Oh, hi, honey. Uh-oh. George looks back at Susan, and the hooker happily takes his $20. The actress here is Gina Mastrogiacomo. She plays the prostitute. I don't know, am I allowed to say prostitute or hooker? She's a sex worker. I think that's the PC term. At any rate, that's who she plays. She also had appearances in NYPD Blue, ER, and The X-Files. And this was sad. I read that she tragically passed away in 2002 from a very sudden cardiac infection, and that her dad passed away from a broken heart like a month later. I just thought that was really sad. I do really like her performance. She's funny. That perfect attitude she gives George. I don't know why. It always makes me laugh when she's like, ugh, they stink. It's so dismissive. I really enjoy Gina's performance here. All right, next we're in George's apartment, and Susan is understandably suspicious, and she says she hopes George is telling her the truth. He says, of course I'm telling you the truth. And she says, I have to be able to trust you. If I can't trust you, there's no way this can work. Oh, well, a light bulb goes off in George's head. Really? Yes. Then you really have something to think about. George is trying to convince her, if you have any doubt, we must cultivate it. Cultivate it? Deal with it. We must deal with the doubt. The doubt must be dealt with. I have no doubt, George. Do you? Well, George has an opening, but he instead says no. All right, next we are on the street. Elaine and Craig are walking down the street, and she tells him how excited she is to get that dress. Yeah, it should arrive soon. Arrive? Yes, from Milan. Craig says they've sold out and they've had to order more. And Elaine's confused. She thought Nicole Miller was... But then a man walks out of a store and greets Craig. It's his friend Ian. Craig introduces Elaine and she says, Hi, Ian. It's Ian. 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 Craig tells him how he's working in the Andover shop and that he should stop by. I can get you a great discount. And they say their goodbyes and Ian walks away. Elaine asks Craig, so you're getting him a discount too? Why are you so surprised? No reason. My take here, okay, so here we see some issues with the dress and the discount. Craig is definitely not being honest. The Ian thing is sort of funny. I mean, overall, nothing too significant to the scene. We're just moving the plot along. All right, next we're in Jerry's apartment. Jerry and Kramer are on the couch, and Jerry is bitching about Craig hitting on Elaine and the commission he's going to get from the jacket with the crest that no one seems to like. He says, you know what? I'm going to take the jacket back. I'm going to put this guy right out of commission. Well, Kramer's staying with Jerry, of course, because he's locked out. So he says, I'm going to turn in. And Jerry's like, it's only 9:00. Well, I don't argue with the body, Jerry. That's an argument you can't win. And Jerry can't go to sleep at 9, he says. Well, why don't you just go to your room and read? Jerry points out, look, he's the one going out of his way for Kramer, and that Kramer should be adapting to his schedule. But I'm tired. Oh, why don't you stay with Newman? Oh, he's got a girl there. Kramer starts complaining about the thin quilt, the small couch. He's not going to be able to sleep. So then he finagles his way to sleep with Jerry, even though Jerry's like, there's no way you're sleeping with me. Do I really have to explain why? Well, Elaine enters with a walking stick that she had to write about for the catalog, and Kramer really likes it. She gives it to him. Oh, mama. And she says to Jerry, I am positive you were wrong about Craig, that he told a man that he'd give him a discount. Well, who is he? Some friend of his from England. Don't you see? It's all a big scam. Kramer points out how Craig may think that she's working him for the discount, shaking that little butt of hers into big savings, and that when she gets it, she'll drop him like a hot potato. Oh, please, Elaine says. No. The two of you need to work on trust. Then and only then can there be a free exchange of sex and discounts, the cornerstone of a healthy relationship. Then Kramer gets a little serious and says, Elaine, if you'll excuse us, we need to get to bed. All right, my take on this scene, I'll just talk about the portion of the scene after Elaine enters. It's fine. Not a lot of comedy here again for JLD, just more Jerry telling her what her situation is, which of course I'm never a fan of. It just gets really repetitive in this entire plot. I also feel like there's got to be some dialogue cut out between her telling Jerry Ian is a friend of Craig's from England and the don't you see? It's always seemed a bit clunky to me. I don't know. And speaking of that, I mean, a lot of this episode is clunky. The walking stick thing, it just comes out of nowhere. It has no point. It's like hamstrung into the story, only to have Kramer appear more like a pimp at the end. I just feel like they could have entwined the whole walking stick thing into the Craig plot. Maybe Craig wants it. He loves J. Peterman. And maybe Elaine gives it to him for free, so it's even more infuriating that he's denying the Nicole Miller dress from her. So I don't know. It just kind of bothers me that this walking stick, it's so clear. It's like, oh, we need to get Kramer to get his hands on it. The best part of the scene is Kramer telling her like it is and saying, I love that, shaking that little butt of yours into big savings. It just cracks me up because he says, but. I also like how he does use the walking stick to tap the door. We need to get to bed. All right, next we're in Jerry's bedroom. Jerry's asleep. Well, it's clear that Kramer can't sleep. He turns on the lamp, waking Jerry, and he starts flipping through a magazine. Tells Jerry, patio furniture's on sale. All right, next we're at the Jiffy Park. George tells the manager he, made a big mistake and he wants his car and his deposit back. Oh, what's the problem? You got hookers turning tricks in my cars. How's that for starters? That's all hearsay, the manager says. Okay, George just wants his car and his deposit. I can't do it. Says the agreement clearly states that the deposit is non-refundable. Well, is there anything in the agreement about my car being used as a whorehouse? Manager says, take it up with Consumer Affairs. All right, just give me my car and let me get the hell out of here, George says. Well, that's going to be a problem. Why? It's all the way in the back, he says. We can't get it out for a couple of days. We ask that you please bear with us. George is infuriated. This is a parking lot. People are supposed to be able to get their cars. Ideally. I know this is not an Elaine scene, but just like this storyline it's just stupid. I never understood. It's like, it's a parking lot. How, I don't know. I know it's just supposed to be really poorly run, but whatever. All right, next we're in the Andover shop. Jerry takes the jacket to the counter to return it, and the woman working there asks why. For spite. Spite? Yeah, I don't care for the salesman who sold it to me. She tells him, I don't think you can return an item for spite. Perhaps if the garment was unsatisfactory in some way, but she says spite doesn't fit any of their requirements for a refund. Well, Jerry thinks that's ridiculous. What difference does it make? She says, let me speak to the manager. So the manager comes over and Jerry explains what's going on, and the manager confirms, yeah, you can't return an item for spite. All right, fine, Jerry says. I don't like it. That's why I'm returning it. Sorry, you already said spite, so it's too late. The actress in this scene is Pamela Dillman. She's also appeared in The Nanny and Sabrina the Teenage Witch. She doesn't really seem to be acting anymore, but I think she's good. I enjoy her. She's doing that thing where she's funny without trying to be funny. She's just very true to this type of a character, a woman that would work in like a fancy dancy shop like this. And she also has Elaine's old hairdo, like the wall of hair. I've always noticed that. I'm like, did the hair person on set just miss doing the wall of hair? And she's like, ooh, let me do it with this actress. I do love when she goes over to the manager and we see her mouthing like what the issue is. And she really emphasizes spite. Like we see that. It's a great performance. All right, next we're on a restaurant patio. Kramer's having drinks with Charmaine and Ethan. Jerry and Elaine walk by and stop to talk to them, and Kramer is telling them that Charmaine is the costume designer and Ethan is the wig master. Oh, Jerry recognizes that, and he's like, "You're staying with my friend George." "Right, George." "I get the feeling he doesn't want me there." Jerry's like, he doesn't even want himself there. And they all laugh. Charmaine invites them to join. Jerry accepts, but Elaine says she has to go meet a friend. "What are we, dog meat?" Kramer says. Ethan then compliments Elaine's hair, asks if she's ever thought about selling it. It would make a brilliant wig. They make wigs out of human hair and pay plenty for them. Elaine says goodbye and exits. Charmaine remembers that she needs to pick up the dream coat from the cleaners, and Kramer confirms with her that he can borrow the backup, and she's like, "Yeah, but you have to be careful with it." And then they both exit. Jerry gets a champagne coulis delivered to him, and Ethan says, "Looks like it's just you and me, cowboy." "Yeah, I guess so." The actress in this scene is Kim Chase. She's also been in Days of Our Lives, Who's the Boss, and Weeds. I think she's fine. I do like that she opens the scene with that snarky line, "Wake up, honey, it's the 90s. You just feel like they're having a little bitch session, which is cute. All right, next we're at Elaine's apartment. Craig is over and he's exhausted from work and sits on her couch. She asks about the Nicole Millers and when they're arriving. He says, it's the funniest thing. The shipment is actually coming by boat, and it takes longer, what with the waves and all. So you're just going to have to be a little bit more patient. "So you have no idea when they will arrive?" Elaine asks. He yawns. He says, "I'm really not sure." My take on this scene, nothing to comment on here. Just have to see Craig being a shady jerk some more. Also, I feel like Elaine would just go to the shop and investigate herself. It just doesn't track with her character that she just keep wondering and questioning. She's Elaine Menace. Go and see for yourself. I feel like she would do that. She barely knows this guy. Like, why is she trying to be so, polite around him? All right, next, we're back at the restaurant patio. Jerry and Ethan are having a good time chatting, and it's actually about George and Susan, when he says, "I don't see them together at all." A man approaches and greets Ethan, reminds him who he is. "Jesse, George Hamilton's personal assistant." "Oh, right." Ethan introduces Jesse to Jerry, and Jesse couldn't be less interested. Jesse then asks Ethan out, and of course, Jerry takes offense. "You're asking him out right in front of me? How do you know we're not together?" "I just didn't think you were," Jesse says. "Well, why not?" "I don't know, just didn't." "Well, it's very emasculating." Jerry's so mad. All right, next we're at Elaine's apartment. Elaine answers the phone call, and it's the manager of the Andover shop asking for Craig. But Craig's asleep on the couch, and she asks, "Well, is this important?" And then she asks about the Nicole Millers and when they're arriving from Milan. The manager says they have an abundance of the Nicole Millers, and they're not expecting any more. "Oh, really?" He says, "Could you just please tell Craig that he doesn't need to be in until 11 a.m. tomorrow?" "Oh, yeah, I'll be sure he gets the message." Elaine hangs up and looks over at Craig sleeping and thinks about how, wigs from human hair make a lot of money. So she picks up a pair of scissors and looks at Craig. My take on this scene, Craig is caught, and that's that. We get no closure to this plot for Elaine. Does she end up cutting his ponytail off? I think she does, but we don't see any follow-up. Her plot is just cut off after this. Next, we're on the street. We see a lady walk out of a shop, and her fancy fur-lined hat blows off, rolls down the street to Kramer, who is dressed in the Technicolor Dreamcoat, holding the walking stick. He puts the hat on and struts his stuff down the street. He gets to Jiffy Park and sees some action going down in the Cadillac, kicks them out, and the sex worker gets pissed. She's like, "You just cost me some money!" Starts hitting him with her purse, and he's trying to stop her when the cops arrive. Police officer says to freeze right there. There's a tag to the episode where Kramer is getting a mugshot taken, and the officer's very impatient with him. "I said turn, pimp! I'm not a pimp," Kramer says, almost crying. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break, and I will see you on the other side. What's in a name? Well, some would say not much, but I would have to disagree. Our names can hold a lot of meaning, pride, and deep family connections. But when you have a name that sounds a lot like another name, life can be full of frustrating moments. Hi, I'm Ian Normanson. That's Ian, not Ian. I've had to say that many times in my life. A few years ago, I posted an innocent rant on social media after a rather stubborn woman refused to say my name correctly. Well, to say the post went viral would be a massive understatement. After thousands of Gregs not Craigs and Kirstens not Kristens, etc. shared their stories, I realized I was a part of a very unique community, which is why I started my podcast. Actually, my name is ... podcast. Each week, I talk to someone who has experience with name confusion and how the constant correcting has affected his or her life. In a heart-wrenching episode, I speak to Haley, whose birth name was actually Hallie. But being a shy child, she never felt comfortable correcting anyone and now goes by the mistaken name. I was named after Halle Berry because my parents were big Catwoman fans. My nursery was decorated in her movie posters, and I even had a Monsters Ball mobile above my crib. It was really special to them to have a daughter named Hallie. But no one could ever get it right, not my friends or teachers. So eventually I stopped correcting, and now I'm Haley. And how did your parents react? They haven't spoken to me in 4 years. They think I've dishonored them, our relationship, and most of all, Halle Berry. You can find Actually My Name Is ... podcast wherever you find your podcasts. And remember, name confusion can be devastating, so please open your ears and listen. Was that Faye or Faith? Alec or Alex? Alyssa or Alicia? Ian or Ian? It's not that hard, goddammit. Actually, my name is ... podcast. Sorry isn't good enough. And we're back. Funny story this week with the extras. I had watched all the episode-specific extras. There was really nothing that interesting I wanted to include. But then I went to the disc extras, just kind of the general extras for that disc, and they had something titled Queen of the Castle, the Elaine Bennis story. So I was like, well, obviously I have to watch this. And it was great. It was just a bunch of different directors and actors praising JLD and her portrayal of Elaine Bennis. So Jerry Seinfeld says that Julia Louis-Dreyfus was the key to the success of the show. And I couldn't agree more. Director Rob Reiner talks about how JLD has that rare combination of being sexy and cute and funny all at the same time, and that he remembered her from Saturday Night Live, and that she wasn't there for very long, but he noticed that about her right away. It's like, wow, she's got everything, and it really made an impact on him. And I loved this. It was Jerry quoting Larry David, but he said that Larry put it this way, that JLD gave the show luster. She was like the pearl that smoothed over all the rough, low-minded behaviors of the guys on the show. I mean, I don't think there's a better way to put Elaine Bennis's character impact on Seinfeld, and in turn, obviously, JLD's performance. I just thought that was I had to write that down. I was like, wow, giving the show luster. First of all, what a great word. And the pearl that smoothed over all the rough, low-minded behaviors of the men. Oh, love that. And one of the producers talked about casting the role and how they saw scores of women, but just no one that was worthy of pulling this off, the Elaine character off. And that's when Larry mentioned Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Obviously you remembered her from SNL because they were on the same season together. So then JLD herself talked about loving the Seinfeld scripts. They were so different. But at first she wasn't that interested because the part wasn't very big. So she was like, I was kind of unsure about it, but she was intrigued by the writing. She also talked about, and I've talked about it on this show, about how she, at first, in the first 3 seasons, really, she just didn't feel like she was being utilized very much. And how she would come into the office weeping and, saying, hey, I'm not being used on the show effectively. I can do more. And JLD is like very explicit. I want really funny stuff. And she said, and it made a difference once she expressed herself, things started to happen. She's like, slowly, but it started to happen. The writer Peter Melman talked about how if Julia doesn't have a strong story in an episode, then the episode won't be as good. I feel like I've said this pretty much in every episode review, but I couldn't agree more, of course. John O'Hurley in this extra said that JLD was by far the best comic actress he's ever worked with. Says how she has a face that lights up the camera, just a beautiful woman, and couple that with the courage to twist that beautiful face in any direction. He points out how she's never afraid to be unattractive. He mentions her physicality, genius, mostly illustrated by the Elaine dance, and just how courageous she was to do that. Michael Richards points out, I never saw a process with Julia. She just did it. She was just always ready to swing. And at first I was like, is that a slight? Because I think Michael Richards very much had a process for getting into the character of Kramer. But I think for someone who needs to do that, seeing someone who just can turn it on like Julia Louis-Dreyfus, he probably maybe was like, how the hell did she do that? But it was definitely said with admiration. Peter Melman said, wow, you just never knew how JLD would deliver a line. It just always surprised you. And that she brought to life a character that really wasn't on the page. Elaine was really created, not just by the writers, maybe a little bit by the writers, but mostly by JLD. And then this was cute. JLD talked about how, often they would go very late into the night shooting. And she said if it was after 10 p.m., she was no good. She got very laughy, and it would ruin a lot of takes and made for a lot of bloopers and really annoyed some of the cast members. But she was like, hey, I told you guys after 10 p.m., I'm useless. They showed the clip of her winning the Emmy for Elaine. And she talked about how I was so shocked. She's like, we weren't like the biggest show at that time. So I just had no expectation that I would win. So when they showed me while they were showing all the nominees, I kind of did this silly thing of crossing my fingers saying, please, please, please to the camera. But then she wins, and it was really cute. They had her speech, the clip of her speech in this extra, and she's just adorable. She can barely keep it together. She's so incredibly thankful. And finally, JLD kind of wraps up the segment saying, she just always has these memories of how much they laughed on the show, that they really enjoyed the process, and that she misses that a lot. Okay, now it's time to open Greg's Sack Lunch. Greg is our most dedicated contributor to this podcast, and every week he sends us a sack full of his thoughts. All right, so first in Greg's sack are his overall thoughts. He says, this is another one of those episodes I sort of forget about because none of the stories are really noteworthy or memorable in the grand scheme of the show. Elaine gets a simple premise here dating a clothing store sales guy, and it's all fine. I just wish there was more to it. Oh yeah, I have a lot more to say about that, but I will save it for my own notes at the end. But yeah, we're on the same page here, Greg. Next in Greg's sack are his favorite scenes and Elaine moments. He says, Elaine doesn't get a ton of comedy in this episode, but my favorite moment is probably when she joins Jerry at the store and gets all smitten upon meeting Craig. Flirty Elaine is always fun to watch, but really even this is a bit shortchanged because the guy does more of the talking than she does. Her basically telling Jerry to get the jacket watch, count it, oh I did, Greg, is laughable because Jerry didn't want it at all, and then when he tries to return it later out of spite, that's a funny scenario. Agreed, yeah, there are elements to the storyline that are really funny. Like I said, I think Jerry has the strongest of everyone's storylines. But yes, I'm on the same page. Loved Flirty Elaine. I counted the jacket watch, and very much on the same page that Elaine does not get a lot of comedy. Greg goes on to say, not so much an Elaine moment, but I do like when she's talking to Jerry about Craig, and Jerry says the line, "A ponytail? Get real." That just makes me laugh because that's an honest thing someone would think about an adult man with the ponytail. Yet Elaine is never bothered by those things. Yeah, that is really, I love that too. I think I made sure to say that when I was reviewing that scene. And like I said, I think Craig gets a pass because he's English. I mean, there's no way if just a regular American dude had a ponytail. No. Elaine's not into that. I always think about when she's like, I don't care for jewelry on men. Like, I feel like that would be, I don't care for a ponytail on a man. But yeah, British Craig can get away with it. Next in Greg's sack, I find his scene swap. He says, everything in this episode is just okay, and I think a lot of the plots could have been executed better. Elaine should have had more comedy in her situation with Craig. Susan thinking she doesn't trust George because she stumbled upon him talking to the hooker was something that could have used Elaine. The prostitution at the parking lot thing just doesn't seem that funny to me, and the entire thing just seemed like a setup to make Kramer look like a pimp at the end. I just don't really care for this episode, I guess. Yeah, you're right. I mean, so Spike Feresten and the extras talked about how that did actually happen. He found a really cheap parking lot in New York. The type of Jeep he had apparently didn't lock. So he would constantly find used condoms in it. So that's why this is a storyline in the episode. They just don't make it funny. It's really not that funny. And yeah, everything is so forced to make Kramer into a pimp at the end. And it's not a great payoff. Why is that funny? It's just not. Moving on, Greg's extra thoughts. He says, would Elaine really cut off a guy's ponytail just because he was leading her on about the dress just to date her longer? Seems a bit too extreme, and I needed there to be something else about him here that warrants such a response. Right. Definitely extreme, but also we see no closure. We don't know if she does go through with it. Of all the sort of cliffhangers they could have had in the episode, I wouldn't have cared if we didn't know what happened to Kramer, but apparently Kramer as a pimp was the top thing on the writer's board that week or something. I don't know. But yeah, seeing the follow-up, she cuts off his ponytail. What happens when he wakes up? How does this play out? But like you, Greg, I think we're supposed to assume she does it, and it's totally extreme. Like I said, I'm going to get more into this in a little bit, but yeah, it's just what a weak, very poorly executed plot for Elaine. And lastly, Greg says, the timeline of this episode is no more than 2 weeks, and that's determined by Susan's house guests staying with them. So how in this short of time is Craig already giving his boss Elaine's home phone number as the place to reach him? You've been out twice that we've seen. Have you already moved in? He's one of those bounders. It's funny. I think it's only supposed to be a couple of days. I'm not sure it's supposed to be the full 2 weeks because at the end, Kramer's got the dream coat on. So clearly the wigmaster's probably still there. So I'm not sure the timeline. But yeah, again, I think it's a little odd. Not only is he giving Elaine's number as his contact to his boss, but he's also already napping on her couch. It's what? Yeah, you guys have been to lunch and maybe one other date. So what is this relationship? Definitely one of those bounders. Thank you so much, Greg, for your thoughts. And now it's time to close Greg's sack lunch. All right, moving on to my favorite Elaine moments. Woof. It's really tough to pick anything, but I suppose I have to pick flirty Elaine in the beginning, specifically the over-the-top laugh after Craig asks for her number. Very cute. Maybe second would be her ripping on Jerry. I don't know. I don't think I can pick a second. Ugh. And my final notes. Very weak story for Elaine. I lost interest in whether the dress was arriving from Milan about a minute after it was mentioned. I didn't mind the Craig character. I liked him. He's a great actor. He's a good character actor. I've seen him in other things. But like I said, maybe involve him with that walking stick. That's a very Elaine thing. She's got to write about something for the catalog. Or something with J. Peterman, since we established that Craig loved J. Peterman. So maybe there's something there. I definitely think we could have kept Craig, but just come up with something better. The Nicole Miller thing, it's oh my God, how long is this going on? Oh, the whole episode. And then we get no closure with this ponytail. It's very poorly executed. Just so shortchanged for JLD in this episode. My scene swap idea, I would have swapped out the Nicole Miller for anything else better. Walking stick, J. Peterman. Maybe Craig starts, asking for a J. Peterman introduction or something. I don't know. Just anything would have been better. I'm done with the Nicole Miller conversation. And then finally, I thought, should the Technicolor Dreamcoat be another jacket watch? Are we going to have 2 in the same episode? Yes, we are. All right. 16th jacket watch, the Technicolor Dreamcoat that Kramer wears and causes him to be mistaken for a pimp. And I think that's all I can say about the Wigmaster. Please be sure to follow the pod on social media. On Insta, it's Hot Heavy Elaine. TikTok, Elaine Bennis Podcast. And if you'd like to email me, please do at elainepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.